Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed, where we take complex topics and distill them into actionable insights.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging into a fascinating idea that really underpins much of how we understand the world, the power of models.
Yeah.
Think about something incredibly complex, like, say, the Boeing Dreamliner. It's just a marvel of engineering.
Absolutely spectacular.
But what's really remarkable, I think, is how something much simpler, the Wright brothers' vision, specifically their wind tunnel, made it all possible eventually.
Indeed. Yeah, the Dreamliner, with its super-light composites, all those hours of wind tunnel tests, it really owes a huge debt to that fundamental shift in thinking the Wright brothers brought.
Exactly. Their genius wasn't just, building the first plane that flew. It was inventing the wind tunnel itself.
That controlled environment.
Right. Imagine this, like simple wooden box, maybe the size of a shipping crate. And inside, they tested miniature wings. Yeah, tiny models. It was a simplified, scaled-down version of reality. But it gave them the precise data they needed. It unlocked the secrets of flight.
And that basic idea, using a simplified representation to understand something complex, that's exactly what economists do.
Ah, okay. So just like engineers use those model airplanes, economists use their own simplified representations. Models, you call them.
We call them models, yes, to try and make sense of the incredibly complex economic world around us.
And our mission today, for you listening, is to make these fundamental economic models really crystal clear. We're pulling the key ideas from Chapter 2 of Krugman and Wells's Microeconomics.
We'll be unpacking concepts like trade-offs, something you face every day.
And gains from trade, how money flows, all that good stuff. We want to make sure you really grasp the core principles, the terminology.
And importantly, how to read those graphs you always see in economics.
Absolutely. All tailored to help you prep for your studies and actually apply these ideas out there in the real world.
Let's get into it.
So let's unpack this idea of economic models first. What exactly is a model in economics? Is it like a toy train set?
Well, not quite like a train set, but the principle is similar. At its core, an economic model is really any simplified representation of reality that is used to better understand real-life situations.
A simplified representation, like a map isn't the territory itself.
Precisely. Think of it as a specially designed lens. It strips away all the, the messy, irrelevant details so you can focus clearly on just a few crucial relationships.
And why is that so critical? I mean, why not just look at the real world?
Because the real world is overwhelmingly complex. If you try to analyze every single variable at once, you just get lost in the noise. It's impossible.
Okay, so models cut through the complexity. How do they actually help economists do that?
Well, they allow us to perform what are essentially thought experiments. We can isolate the effects of just one change at a time by using a crucial assumption, the other things equal assumption, ceteris paribus, as it's sometimes called.
Other things equal. So you hold everything else constant.
Exactly. You hold all other relevant factors unchanged, which lets you see the cause and effect of that one specific change much more clearly.
Okay, that sounds powerful. Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine trying to figure out the nationwide impact of a new minimum wage law. That's huge, complex.
Right, affects millions of people, businesses.
So instead, an economist might study a smaller, more contained situation, like when New York City raised its minimum wage back in 2019.
Like a smaller test case.
That simplified observation, focusing just on New York, can then help inform predictions about the broader impact without having to, guess about the entire country all at once.
I see. Or like those tax models governments use.
Perfect example. Those are often large mathematical computer programs, but fundamentally they're still simplified representations of the tax system and the economy.
So policymakers can sort of simulate a tax change.
Exactly. They can assess how a proposed change might affect different income groups or different industries before actually putting the law into effect. It gives them a forecast.
A thought experiment on a bigger scale.
Right. And these models, whether they're simple sketches or complex programs, very often rely on math, numerical examples, and especially graphs to make abstract ideas clearer.
Graphs. Yes, let's talk about those. That brings us neatly to our first big economic model. The production possibility frontier, the PPF.
The PPF. This model really brings to life that core concept of scarcity and the resulting trade-offs we were just talking about.
Scarcity meaning resources are limited.
Always limited. Every economy, every business, even you as an individual, you face limits. If Boeing uses its engineers, materials, and factory space to build those Dreamliners.
they can't use those same resources to build something else like smaller jets.
Exactly. There's always a trade-off.
So the Production Possibility Frontier, or PPF, it's a model that specifically illustrates the trade-offs facing an economy that produces only two goods.
Right. That's the standard simplification, yes. Two goods make it easy to visualize on a graph. It shows you the maximum quantity of one good you can produce for any given quantity of the other good you're already producing.
Okay, so let's visualize it. If you're looking at this in a textbook, you'd see a graph. What's on the axis?
Typically, you'd have the quantity of one good, say small jets, on the horizontal axis, the x-axis.
And the other good, Dreamliners, on the vertical axis, the y-axis.
And then there's the curve itself, the frontier. That line represents all the maximum possible combinations of those two goods, small jets and Dreamliners, that our simplified economy, let's say just Boeing, can produce if it's using all its resources fully and efficiently.
So any point on that curve or inside it is possible.
Yes, those points are feasible. Boeing can actually produce that mix. For instance, a point showing 20 small jets and maybe 9 Dreamliners, if it's inside or on the line, is doable.
But what about a point way out beyond the curve? Say 40 small jets and 30 Dreamliners.
That point is not feasible. Given current resources and technology, they simply can't produce that much of both. It's beyond their current possibilities.
Okay, and the points where the curve actually hits the axis.
Those show the extremes. If Boeing puts all its resources into small jets, the point on the horizontal axis shows the maximum number of small jets they can make, maybe 40, with 0 Dreamliners.
And vice versa for the vertical axis, all Dreamliners. 0 small jets, say 30 Dreamliners.
Exactly. And points along the curve, like maybe point A showing 20 small jets and 15 Dreamliners, or point B with 28 small jets and only 9 Dreamliners, these points really highlight those trade-offs. To get more small jets, you have to give up some Dreamliners.
It's a really neat visual. And what's fascinating is how this simple curve immediately tells us about 3 really big economic ideas. Efficiency, opportunity cost, and economic growth.
Let's take efficiency first. In economics, an economy is considered efficient if there are basically no missed opportunities. Meaning, there's no way to make some people better off without making someone else worse off. You're not wasting anything.
Okay, and how does the PPF show efficiency?
Well, we talk about efficiency in production. An economy achieves that when it's operating on the PPF curve itself, like at points A or B in our example.
Right on the line.
Right on the frontier. If you're there, you're getting the absolute most output possible from your available resources. You literally cannot produce more of one good without producing less of the other.
So what if you're inside the curve, like that point C? 20 small jets and 9 Dreamliners, which was below point A.
Operating inside the PPF means there's inefficiency in production. You could be doing better. You could produce more of both goods or more of one without sacrificing any of the other.
Like if a country has really high unemployment.
Exactly. That's a classic sign of production inefficiency. You have idle resources, people who could be working, so the economy isn't on its PPF, it's operating inside it.
But just producing a lot isn't enough, right? You mentioned making people better off.
Precisely. That brings in efficiency and allocation. It's not just about maximizing production, it's about producing the specific mix of goods and services that people actually want and value.
Okay. Like the example from the textbook about the former Soviet Union.
Yeah, that's a stark example. They often met their production quotas, hitting points on their PPF, perhaps, but they ended up with warehouses full of, say, tractors nobody needed while people couldn't find basic things like soap.
So no allocative efficiency.
Right. They were producing efficiently in one sense, but not allocating resources to what people actually wanted. A truly efficient economy needs both production efficiency and allocative efficiency.
That makes total sense.
Right.
Okay, second big concept, opportunity cost. I feel like this is one people hear a lot but maybe don't fully grasp.
It's absolutely central. The PPF shows it beautifully. The true cost of anything isn't just the money you pay, it's what you must give up to get it. That's the opportunity cost.
So back to Boeing, moving from point A, 20 small, 15 Dreamliners, to point B, 28 small, 9 Dreamliners.
Okay, to gain those 8 extra small jets from 20 to 28, Boeing had to give up 6 Dreamliners, from 15 down to 9.
So the opportunity cost of those 8 small jets is the 6 Dreamliners they couldn't build.
Exactly. Or you could say the opportunity cost of one small jet in that range is 6 divided by 8, which is 34 of a Dreamliner.
Got it. And is that cost always the same along the curve?
Sometimes, for simplification in models, we assume a constant opportunity cost. That gives you a straight line PPF, like a constant slope.
But you said usually they're curved.
That's right. In reality, PPFs are typically bowed out from the origin, meaning they're concave. This shape illustrates increasing opportunity cost.
Increasing cost, why does it increase?
Because resources aren't perfectly interchangeable. As you try to produce more and more of one good, say small jets, you have to shift resources away from producing the other good, Dreamliners.
Oh.
Initially, you shift resources that are best suited for small jets anyway. But as you push further, you start having to shift resources, maybe engineers or specific types of equipment that were actually much better suited for building Dreamliners.
Ah, so the resources you're moving become less and less suitable for the new task.
Exactly. Think of farmers. If you want to grow more corn, first use land great for corn. Then you might use land okay for corn, but better for wheat. The amount of wheat you give up, the opportunity cost, to get that extra bit of corn gets larger and larger.
So the bowed-out shape tells you that specialization gets progressively more costly in terms of what you sacrifice.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, third concept, economic growth.
The PPF provides a simple way to visualize growth. Economic growth is defined as an expansion of the economy's production possibilities.
Meaning the whole frontier moves.
Exactly. It's shown as an outward shift of the entire PPF curve. The new PPF lies completely outside the original one.
So the economy can now produce more of both goods than it could before.
Yes, more of everything is potentially possible. The production capacity has increased.
What causes that shift? What drives growth?
Two main sources. First, an increase in the economy's factors of production. These are the fundamental resources used to produce goods and services that aren't used up in the process.
Like land, labor?
Land, labor, physical capital. That means machinery, buildings, infrastructure, and human capital, which is the workforce's accumulated education, skills, and knowledge.
So if Boeing builds a big new factory...
That's an increase in physical capital. It allows them to produce more planes, shifting their PPF outward. More available labor or better educated workers would do the same.
Okay. Factors of production. What's the second source?
Progress in technology. Technology in economics means the technical means for producing goods and services. It's about how you produce things.
Like a new invention or a better process.
Precisely. The Dreamliner itself is a great example again. Boeing's use of those lightweight composite materials was a technological innovation.
Right, allowing lighter, more fuel-efficient planes.
It allowed them to get more output, better planes, or potentially more planes, from the same amount or even less of inputs. That technological progress pushes the entire PPF outward. More output from the same resources.
Okay, so the PPF is a really versatile model. Scarcity, trade-offs, efficiency, cost, growth, all in one picture.
It's a foundational model for a reason.
Now let's shift gears slightly. We talked about trade-offs for one economy, like Boeing. What happens when we have two economies or two countries? This brings us to comparative advantage and gains from trade.
Ah, yes. This is truly one of the most important and sometimes counterintuitive insights in all of economics.
The basic idea seems simple enough. It makes sense to produce the things you're especially good at producing and to buy from other people the things you aren't as good at producing.
Exactly. The classic analogy is the brain surgeon. She might be, I don't know, really good at fixing leaky faucets too. Maybe better than the local plumber.
She has an absolute advantage in both surgery and plumbing.
Let's say yes. But her time is incredibly valuable when spent doing surgery. It makes far more sense for her to focus on surgery and pay the plumber to fix the faucet, even if the plumber takes longer than she would.
Because her opportunity cost of fixing the faucet is sky high, it's the surgery she's not doing.
Precisely. Both she and the plumber gain from specializing and trading her surgical services, indirectly, through money, for his plumbing services.
Okay, that makes sense individually. How does this scale up to countries?
Let's use the textbook model. Imagine two countries, the US and Brazil, and two goods, large jets and small jets. For simplicity, let's assume straight line PPFs again, meaning constant opportunity costs for each country.
Okay, so the US PPF might show it can produce, say, 40 small jets if it makes no large jets, or 30 large jets if it makes no small jets.
Right. And doing the math, the opportunity cost for the US to produce one small jet is giving up 34 of a large jet. 30 large, 40, small equals 34.
Okay, one small costs 34 large for the US. Now Brazil. Maybe Brazil's PPF shows it can make 30 small jets, if no large, or 10 large jets, if no small.
So for Brazil, the opportunity cost of producing one small jet is giving up only 13 of a large jet. 10 large, 30 small equals 13.
Ah. So Brazil gives up less to make a small jet than the U.S. does?
Yeah.
13 is less than 34.
Exactly. Even if the U.S. could produce more small jets overall if it wanted to, 40 versus 30, Brazil has a lower opportunity cost in producing small jets.
And that lower opportunity cost is the key, right? That's comparative advantage.
That's the definition. A country has a comparative advantage in producing something if the opportunity cost of that production is lower for that country than for other countries.
So in our example, Brazil has the comparative advantage in small jets.
And if you flip it, the U.S. must have the comparative advantage in large jets. Its opportunity cost for a large jet is 43 small jets, 40-30, while Brazil's is 3 small jets, 30-10. 43 is less than 3.
Okay, U.S. specializes in large, Brazil in small. Now, show us the gains from trade. What happens if they don't trade first?
Without trade, each country has to produce what it consumes. Maybe the U.S. produces and consumes, say, 16 small jets and 18 large jets, and Brazil produces and consumes 6 small and 8 large, just points on their respective PPFs.
Got it. Now they specialize based on comparative advantage.
Right. The U.S. goes all in on large jets, producing 30 large and 0 small. Brazil goes all in on small jets, producing 30 small and no large.
Then they trade. Let's say the U.S. sells 10 large jets to Brazil in exchange for 20 small jets from Brazil. Is that a possible trade?
Let's check the costs. The U.S. gives 10 large, gets 20 small. That's 1 large for 2 small, or 1 small costs 12 large. That's better than the 34 large it costs the U.S. to make them itself. So the U.S. likes this deal?
And Brazil. It gives 20 small, gets 10 large. That's 2 small for 1 large. To make a large jet itself costs Brazil 3 small jets. Getting 1 for only 2 small jets is a good deal for Brazil, too.
Exactly. The terms of trade, 1 large for 2 small, fall between their individual opportunity costs, making trade beneficial for both.
Okay, so after specializing in trading, what do they each end up consuming?
Well, the U.S. produced 30 large, sold 10, so it keeps 20 large. It produced 0 small, but bought 20 small from Brazil. So the U.S. consumes 20 small and 20 large.
Wait, before trade, they only consumed 16 small and 18 large. Now they have more of both.
Now Brazil. Produced 30 small, sold 20, keeps 10 small. Produced 0 large, bought 10 large from the U.S. So Brazil consumes 10 small and 10 large.
And they started with only 6 small and 8 large. So Brazil also consumes more of both goods.
That's it. That's the gains from trade. By specializing in what they do relatively best, lowest opportunity cost, and trading, both countries can consume beyond their own individual production possibilities.
That's amazing. It really drives home why trade can be so beneficial. But you mentioned absolute advantage earlier.
Right, and this is where a lot of confusion comes in, especially in public debates. Absolute advantage just means being able to produce more of a good per worker or with the same resources than another country.
So the U.S. might have an absolute advantage in producing both large and small jets compared to Brazil.
Entirely possible. The U.S. might just be more productive overall.
But it still benefits the U.S. to specialize in trade.
Yes, because the basis for mutual gain isn't absolute advantage, it's comparative advantage. Even if the U.S. is better at making both things, it's comparatively better at making large jets. Its cost advantage is bigger there. Brazil, even if absolutely worse at both, is comparatively better or less bad at making small jets.
So focusing on comparative advantage allows total world production to increase, creating gains for everyone involved in the trade.
Exactly. Pundits who worry that trade isn't beneficial unless you have an absolute advantage in something are missing this fundamental point.
Does this play out in the real world,
Yeah.
like with developing countries?
Absolutely. Take Bangladesh, for example, and its large clothing manufacturing sector. Bangladesh probably doesn't have an absolute advantage in clothing compared to, say, China or the U.S. in terms of sheer output per worker.
Right.
But its productivity disadvantage is smaller in clothing manufacturing than it is in, say, making sophisticated electronics or airplanes.
So its opportunity cost of making clothes relative to making other things is lower.
Precisely. It has a comparative advantage in clothing. And if you look at data like a scatter plot showing country income versus how much of their exports are clothing,
What would you see?
you generally see that poorer countries tend to rely more heavily on clothing exports. It's often one of the first industries where they can gain a foothold in global trade because of this comparative advantage principle.
So even with challenges like factory safety, this specialization allows them to participate in the global economy and hopefully improve living standards over time.
It's a powerful engine for development, driven by comparative advantage.
Okay, from the specifics of trade, let's zoom out again to look at the whole economy. We need a way to visualize how all these pieces, households, firms, production, income, fit together.
And for that, economists use the circular flow diagram. It helps us move beyond thinking about simple barter, just swapping goods directly.
Which obviously doesn't happen much in modern economies. Money
Yeah.
is involved.
Right. The circular flow diagram is a schematic representation, another model, that shows how flows of money, goods, and services are channeled through the economy.
Schematic, like a basic map of the economic plumbing.
That's a good way to put it. It typically shows flows of physical things like goods, services, labor, moving in one direction, often shown with one color arrow, say blue.
And flows of money moving in the opposite direction, maybe with green arrows.
Exactly. The simplest version has two main actors. First, households, that's basically us, individuals or families who share income and buy stuff.
Okay, households. And the second?
Firms. These are the organizations that produce goods and services for sale, and they also employ people from households.
And how do households and firms interact?
They meet in two broad types of markets. On one side of the diagram, you have markets for goods and services.
Like the supermarket, the car dealership?
Mm-hmm. This is where households buy goods and services from firms. So physical goods and services flow from firms to households.
And money flows from households to firms as payment. Consumer spending.
Correct. Then on the other side of the diagram, you have the factor markets.
Factor markets? What are factors again?
Factors of production, remember. Land, labor, physical capital, human capital. These are the resources firms need to produce their goods and services.
Ah, so in factor markets, the roles are reversed.
Yes. Here, firms buy or rent these resources from households. Households supply labor, they own land, they invest capital, maybe indirectly through savings.
So the physical factors of production flow from households to firms.
And the money flows from firms back to households as payment for those factors.
Like wages for labor, rent for land, interest and profit for capital. Income.
Exactly. The factor markets are where income is generated and distributed. They determine how the total income created in an economy is allocated among the owners of land, labor, and capital.
It's a loop. Money flows from firms to households as income, then from households back to firms as spending.
It's a beautifully simple depiction of that interdependence. Now, it is a simplification, of course.
Right. It leaves out government taxes and spending, trade between countries.
Sales between firms, people working in family businesses where the lines blur. Lots of details.
But despite its simplicity,
it's incredibly useful as a mental framework. It helps you see how spending, production, employment, income, growth, they're all interconnected. An increase in consumer spending leads to more production, which requires more factors, generating more income, potentially leading to more spending. You see the cycle.
yeah, it connects the dots. It even helps place things like Bangladesh's clothing exports. That's part of the flow of goods and services between countries, linked into these domestic flows.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've looked at these key models, PPF, comparative advantage, circular flow. How do economists actually use these models in their day-to-day work? This seems to lead to the distinction between positive and normative economics.
Yes, that's a crucial distinction for understanding what economists do and why they sometimes disagree. Models are tools for analysis.
And that analysis can be of two types.
Broadly, yes. First, there's positive economics. This is analysis that tries to describe the way the economy actually works. It focuses on factual statements and cause and effect relationships.
So questions with definite right or wrong answers, at least in principle.
Exactly. Even if the answer is hard to find. Positive statements are often about what is or what will be. They often involve forecasts, simple predictions based on a model.
Like, if we raise the toll on this bridge, how much revenue will it generate?
Perfect example. Or, how much more revenue would it generate if the toll went up by $1? These are positive questions. You can, in theory, collect data and find the answer.
Okay, so that's positive. What's the other type?
Normative economics. This involves making prescriptions about the way the economy should work. It's about what ought to be.
Ah, so this involves value judgments,
Yeah.
opinions.
Yes, normative statements always incorporate values. Because they involve judgments about desirability, there isn't usually a single right answer that everyone agrees on.
So the question, should the toll be raised? That's normative.
Definitely. Answering that requires weighing different goals. Maybe you value reduced traffic and pollution, arguments for raising the toll, but you also value minimizing the financial hardship on commuters, an argument against. There's no purely factual way to resolve that conflict of values.
So economists giving policy advice are often engaging in normative economics.
Very often, yes. But their positive analysis still informs the normative recommendation.
How so?
Well, while economists might disagree on the ultimate goal, the normative part, they can often agree on the most efficient way to achieve a particular goal based on positive analysis.
Example.
Take helping low-income families afford housing. Most economists, using positive analysis, would agree that rent subsidies, giving families money to help pay rent, are generally more efficient and cause fewer negative side effects than rent controls, capping the price landlords can charge.
Even if they have different opinions on how much help families should get.
Right. They can agree on the best tool, subsidies over controls, based on efficiency, even if they disagree on the normative question of the appropriate level of support.
But economists do disagree, quite often, or at least that's the perception. Ask 5 economists.
And you'll get 6 opinions. Yes, that reputation exists. Part of it, honestly, is exaggerated by the media. Media loves conflict. They tend to highlight the disagreements while ignoring the vast areas where economists actually have broad consensus, like the negative effects of rent controls we just mentioned, or the general benefits of free trade.
Okay, so some disagreement is just amplified, but there are genuine disagreements too.
Absolutely. 2 main reasons. First, economists, like everyone else, can have different underlying values.
So back to the normative side.
Right. One economist might prioritize economic efficiency above all else, while another might place a higher value on social equity or environmental protection. These differing values can lead them to recommend different policies, even if they agree on the positive analysis of how each policy works, like debating income tax versus a consumption tax.
Okay, different values. What's the second reason for disagreement?
It comes back to the models themselves. Remember, models are simplifications. Economists might legitimately disagree on which simplifications are the most appropriate or which factors are most important for analyzing a specific real-world problem.
So they might use different models or emphasize different parts of the same model?
Exactly. Analyzing a proposed tax, one economist's model might focus heavily on the administrative costs, while another's might focus more on how it affects people's decisions about saving or working. Depending on which effects they believe are largest, they can reach different conclusions about the overall impact of the tax.
So disagreements can stem from different values or different modeling choices.
But it's crucial to remember the areas of agreement are often substantial, especially on core principles and well-studied policies. Surveys of economists, like one mentioned from the University of Chicago, often show remarkable consensus on things like the overall benefits of trade with China, while acknowledging some people lose out, or the impact of rent control.
Disagreements seem more common on newer, untested policies where the outcomes are genuinely more uncertain.
That makes sense. Less data, more room for differing model predictions.
Okay, we've covered a huge amount. Models, PPF, trade, circular flow, positive versus normative. Before we wrap up, maybe a quick word on interpreting the data and graphs themselves, since they're so central. For students listening, this is key.
Definitely. Graphs are vital tools, but you need to read them carefully. As we said, they make relationships visual. The slope of a curve tells you how steep it is.
Rise over run.
Right. It shows how sensitive the variable on the vertical y-axis is to changes in the variable on the horizontal x-axis. An upward slope means a positive relationship. When x increases, y increases, like maybe study time and grades.
Hopefully.
And a downward slope shows a negative relationship. When x increases, y decreases, like maybe price of good and the quantity people want to buy.
Okay, slope is important. What else should you watch out for when looking at graphs, especially those showing real-world data?
Be really careful about the scale on the axis. Sometimes, especially in news reports, the vertical axis might be truncated, meaning it doesn't start at 0, or the increments are really small.
To make changes look bigger than they are.
Exactly. It can visually exaggerate fluctuations. A small dip in GDP might look like a terrifying crash if the scale is misleading. Always check the axis labels and the scale.
Good tip. What else?
Always distinguish between absolute changes and percentage changes. A country like Bangladesh might have a really high percentage growth rate in income because it's starting from a low base.
But the actual dollar increase in income per person might be much smaller than in a richer country like the U.S., even if the U.S. percentage growth rate is lower.
Precisely. Context is everything. Don't just look at the percentage.
And maybe the biggest pitfall of all.
Yes. The classic mantra, correlation is not causation. Just because two things tend to move together doesn't automatically mean one causes the other.
There might be a third factor involved?
Very often. That's the problem of omitted variables. The textbook example is ice cream sales and crime rates both going up in the summer. Ice cream doesn't cause crime, or vice versa.
It's the hot weather, the omitted variable, influencing both.
Right. Or consider sales of snow shovels and sales of de-icer fluid. They're correlated because snowfall drives demand for both.
Got it. Correlation isn't causation. Anything else?
One related issue is reverse causality. Sometimes people mix up the direction of cause and effect. Does having a high GPA make students study more, or does studying more lead to a high GPA?
Probably the latter, mostly.
Probably. But it's easy to get it wrong if you're just looking at a correlation. You need theory and careful analysis, not just a graph, to establish causation.
So be a critical consumer of graphs and data. Check the axes, understand absolute versus percent change, and never assume correlation means causation without more evidence.
Excellent summary. That's key for navigating economic information.
Well, this has been quite a journey through the economist's toolkit. We've really unpacked how these seemingly simple models, PPF, comparative advantage, circular flow, are actually incredibly powerful ways to understand complex economic realities.
They provide a framework, a way of thinking that helps cut through the noise. From understanding your own trade-offs when deciding how to spend your time or money,
To grasping the often counterintuitive benefits of international trade you read about in the news.
and seeing how individual choices connect to the larger flows of income and spending in the economy.
These concepts, like opportunity cost or comparative advantage, they aren't just for exams. They really do offer you a lens to make better sense of the world.
And maybe even make better decisions yourself.
So, a final thought for you to take away. How might really internalizing these ideas, thinking about the opportunity cost of your choices, or seeing comparative advantage at play globally change how you interpret events or make decisions in your own life? Something to chew on.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you're feeling a bit more confident and equipped, whether it's for your next economics class or just understanding the world a little better.
From all of us at The Deep Dive,
Yep.
happy learning.